Hey everybody, welcome to the DigiMetaverse Show. I'm your host, Cooper Daniels, and this is your entry into the future of technology. Today, folks, I'm actually announcing that I'm stepping down as the host of the DigiMetaverse Show. It's been a fantastic ride, and you guys are lucky because you have Wynan Kuipers, who is with me right now. What's up, Wynan? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. So, look, everybody, you're going to have Wynan guiding this ship. I will be back for special events. I'm excited. We're already talking about different things that we can do to collaborate on in the future. But for the time being, I'm going to step down as the every week host, and Wynan is going to step in.
Super excited. I'm not sure yet how I can make that what you did continue, but I'm going to try my best. Obviously, again, I've got a different background. I'm not into media. I'm Dutch. I'm a lot of different things that you are, but I'm going to do my best, my ultimate best.
Well, what I'll do is that I'll talk to Mike and I'll talk to Rudy and I'll get a maybe like a fake mustache and a Hawaiian shirt sent over to you so you can you can do your best.
That will definitely help. I would really appreciate that. That's going to put me on the map.
It's going to put you on the map. So I heard recently that you had a good conversation. Your first conversation is coming up right now. I think we're going to play this right before, right?
Yes, we're going to do that, and that's going to be a very new thing for me, but I hope it's going to be meeting your standard and living up to your standard going forward with this thing.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate that's very kind of you to say that I have a nice high standard. I obviously I've talked to you in the past and you're so knowledgeable about the space. These conversations are going to be so valuable to everybody. I know it. I'll be tuning in. And then every once in a while, hopefully we can do something together. And I'll try to wear my loudest shirt and we'll have some fun.
I really love working with you, and I really love working with you going forward. It's going to be in a different guise than what it was, but hey, that's what the world is. The world is full of change, and change is constant.
If that weren't, I mean, I don't think that could be any more true. If you look at the world right now, I mean, it's an intense place with a lot of change. And so
Exactly.
I'm excited for the change. I'm excited for the show. I think it's going to be a positive turn. We've had a lot of fun. Me and Mike for sure have a lot of fun working on the show, and hopefully we entertain some people. I'll continue to do my thing on the Recoup, and I will continue to be supportive of the DigiMetaverse Show. And yeah, I mean, I look forward to what the future holds.
Thank you so much, Cooper. And again, I'm going to try my best to step in your footsteps and make this a success.
All right. Well, great. All right. Well, without further ado, here is Wynan Kuipers and his interview with Jared Tate.
In a much more mild shirt than you are, but I'm going to.
What?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, good morning, you all. We're here and we're now.
Good morning, or well, I guess good evening, depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm good evening. It's 10 o'clock for me in the evening, but still good to talk. Yes, I'm stepping in. You might have seen me on one of the shows that were before. I'm stepping into Cooper Daniels' steps. Those are big shoes to try to fill. I'm going to do my best. I'm again not sure if I can, but I'm sure Jared will help me to get better at what I'm doing, and hopefully together we can get some information here presented to you and some discussion going. We're aiming it to be a friend-to-friend conversation. And let's tackle some challenges and issues that are out there in the world. And how are you doing this morning, Jared?
I'm doing fabulous. How about yourself? I think it would probably be good if you took a little bit of time to talk about your background and kind of how you've come into the mix of the metaverse and everything happening with all of this right now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was made in Holland a long time ago, I should say. And I currently live and work in the Middle East. Trained as a space scientist, and we'll get back to that, I think, a little bit later on, where I was part of, and this is really exciting to me, the early days of the internet, because I really ran around data centers, screwdrivers, cables, all of the things that needed to happen in the early days. It's a different world right now, a very different world. I'm sure we'll get back to that as well. And in this conversation, I'm very much more an IT nerd than a blockchain guru or a blockchain person, which I think is where you come into the mix with your background and what you've done so far.
Well, you know, that's fascinating to me, is because I've always kind of been in awe of that era, you know, what you guys did, you know, starting back in the 90s. And, you know, because obviously I was just a young kid. I was, you know, only 5 or 6 years old, and just everything that was created in the innovation with the internet, and just how it all started. I mean, it's always been a fascinating story to me. You know, and just the fact that all of y'all used to, you know, open up a book and look up IP addresses like phone numbers to talk to each other.
Very true. And there's a true story. I mean, I did work for a very brief period in the space industry. And again, I would love to be young again and be at the times where Elon Musk is just pushing the boundaries of it really below or beyond anything that we know. But in my days, end of the 80s, as you said, early 90s, it was very slow moving. It was all government contracts and what have you, and those were not moving very fast. And but it was true, because it all started, if we're going back in time, it all started with actually sharing data, and sharing data about research, sharing data about what you've figured out in terms of how to, I don't know, protect a satellite, or how to build a satellite that would survive always being in the sun, which is really, really very hard because it gets very hot. And that data wasn't readily available. There was no Google back in the days. Like you said, there was a phone book almost where you looked up IP addresses and you knew the other scientists at the other side of the world that worked for NASA, again, being European, who would have done a little bit of research on different foils and different ways to wrap a satellite into something. And you would really communicate almost from, let's say, a computer on a desktop that belonged to a scientist, to another scientist who would run his own web server to publish his own data. And that was beautiful back in the day. How very different the world is today, and how very different it is that we see things today is something that we will talk about, because again, that is something that was peer-to-peer. It was person to person. You knew the other person at the other end of the line almost. You trusted him.
There was trust involved. Yeah. So security was an afterthought, which is kind of why we're in this mess we are today, because, you know, back then, you know, where the internet started, there wasn't really a need for hardcore encryption and other methods like there is today. And so, you know, I likened in my book, you know, the creation of the internet was like an old wooden bridge that was first built 100 years ago, right? And over time, as you know, time has gone on, you still have the same underlying wooden architecture of the internet, but there's been, you know, a metal skirting put around it, and then a new paint job, and then some fancy new lights and all this other stuff. But at its core, you still have this old crumbling infrastructure that was never designed with security in mind. And that's where blockchain comes in. I think is the biggest opportunity of our lifetime that's going to secure our future in every aspect of our life. And so that's where I think it's kind of amazing to have somebody like yourself that was around back then, you know, and then emerge and start working in the revolution of the rebuilding, I guess, of the internet into the metaverse in the future.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I will tell a little bit more about what the internet and how I see it and how I think we can change it into something back to that peer-to-peer thing. But blockchain, it's a magical word. It's a word that's been out there. It's the word that people know. What does it mean to you, and how did you get involved in that, and why? Because you're a very famous person in this world. How did you get to be so?
I don't know about that, but
well, my words. You can always blame it on me, my words. But how did you get so prominent? What was your drive to get in there? Because I'll talk a little bit about my drive after that.
Well, just to kind of start off with the, basic, I know this word, it's being thrown around everywhere. Now you have, The current U.S. administration just issued an executive order that, every single U.S. government agency needs to put together a report and understanding. Everybody's trying to figure out what is blockchain and how is it going to affect them into the future. It doesn't matter at the European Union, East, West, everywhere. Everybody's trying to figure out, because we kind of all know it's going to, play a part. Well, the simplest explanation that I've been able to come up with for people is the comparison to nature, right? So if you imagine all the DNA in your body, you have DNA in your hair, your arms, your legs. What if all that DNA was just in your fingertip and you were chopping some cocktail or some limes for a cocktail or some vegetables and you slipped and you cut that fingertip off? Well, you'd be in a lot of trouble. Your body would slowly wither and die. Your cells can reproduce and recreate yourself. Well, that's why we have a decentralization of that important information throughout our bodies. But to take this to the next level, imagine a forest, right? If you go and you cut one tree down in the forest, the rest of the forest still survives because it shares that important genetic information that helps life continuously go. Well, what blockchain really is the approximation of nature and the important complex systems we see in nature, but in computer science. And that's really the fundamental shift. Is all of our current architecture of the internet, web servers, they're all these centralized points of failure. So if you've got all your important data in your fingertip or on a single web server, that's why we have all these breaches. That's why we have all these compromises. That's why it's so easy for one group or one nation to cyber attack another nation, is because the whole architecture of the internet was built not in a way that mimics the data structure seen in nature. So how I got involved with this? Well, it's just the whole concept and idea, fascinated me, especially with all the problems in the world going back a decade. And one day I was surfing the internet, stumbled across this thing called Bitcoin, and been going down the rabbit hole ever since.
That's totally fascinating. And I had a similar experience, but then again, building internet stuff from the ground up and seeing it in the early days. Very, very, very quickly, it all gravitated towards centralization, and it's a concept which makes it very efficient. Because again, those data centers, soccer field size data centers we now have, right? And we have not a lot of them. We have a few of them, and they are so hard to build. They are so costly to build, and they are so costly to maintain. It's unbelievable. And only the people that are listening to this that run around those or have been running around those know that it's a beast to manage. While again, back in the old days, and again, showing my age here, and sorry, that's my phone and I will turn it off. But showing my age, it wasn't like that in the beginning, because again, you would manage on your own desk, your own web server in which you publish what you wanted. And it did require a little bit of knowledge. It did require a little bit of having knowledge about what you needed to do in order to do so. But it also, like you said, it spread the knowledge towards a number of different locations, not a single data center, which thousands, if not millions of people rely on. And that's what it is today. And we see the failures of it as well. You said it. Data centers fail. It's technology. It will fail. It affects millions of people when it does so. If this was not the case, and if it was different, like you said, in blockchain and with DNA being spread throughout your body, losing a piece of it is no big deal. It doesn't necessarily grow back like it does with certain animals, but it does not lose the ability to heal the system and to let the system continue. And that is, I think, what we should all try to push back towards, because in this world right now, it's too centralized. And again, we had the notion of big tech. Big tech is being talked about a lot, and again, especially in the area of the world where you are. I mean, people have been called into Senate, if I represent this right or wrong, tell me please. But they've been called in. They've been trying to explain it, but I don't think it got really well.
Well, I mean, you're hitting one of the most dangerous parts of the centralization is when you have a handful of people that can control the technology that billions of people interact with. obviously, I'm the first person to admit, as a human being, I have bias. I have certain beliefs, I have certain understandings of how I perceive the world. Does not mean it's right, does not mean it's the best, but I'm a human being and I'm fallible. So if I am in a position where I am able to control and dictate, for instance, the search terms and the search results that a search engine presents, because as a developer, I program my bias into it. Is that really healthy for humanity? I don't think so. And that's how we see. In fact, today, my favorite search engine, DuckDuckGo, just openly announced that they're removing and censoring search results for anything they deem to be Russian disinformation. Now, the question is who am I and who are they to decide what is disinformation and who is not? And it's a very scary time, the way that you're seeing technology employed across the planet, regardless of what your political beliefs or whatever, you may believe. I'm a proponent that we should have the ability to decide for ourselves, what's real, what's not, and to at least have access so we can have an open discussion. But that's, humanity's moving away from that. And it's becoming more and more centralized. So the real danger is, this technology, either has the power to free us or it has the power to enslave us.
And that's very true. And I think we moved backwards from when this started. And I personally think that the internet is the greatest gift since mankind, because it allows us, if you think about it, it allows us to communicate. You're at least 10,000 miles away from me at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
Half the world, I think we're 9 or 10 hours apart. We do communicate, and it does bring that beautiful thing that we can do this. But again, it runs through centralized components that actually make this happen. And I think blockchain, because you were very early on in terms of being there and actually starting to create digital currency, has taken a first step and a first stab and actually also taking in the finance world a step into take responsibility back, because that's a real topic that we need to speak about as well. Because decentralization means you don't rely on somebody else doing things for you. There's no phone number to call if and when things go bad, or there's no person to call if for whatever reason something is not happening that you're expecting to. And I think we need to speak about responsibility and taking responsibility in this new world as well, because we might be too reliant on actually being so well serviced by these centralized organizations that we just give up trying to educate ourselves, trying to be knowledgeable about what we do and what we want. And I think that's also a really important aspect to highlight here, that with decentralization comes responsibility.
Well, and that's a very, very good point. And it becomes even more important, once we start talking about what is this new world? What is the metaverse going to be? And why is it important to take charge of our own data, to secure our own online presence, and to be able to, control our digital futures? Well, the way that we experience the web right now, here you and I are talking and we're looking at each other on screens, right? Well, that's about to radically change. And we're going to move from the two-dimensional web world to a three-dimensional, immersive, augmented reality experience, where it's going to be harder and harder to differentiate from what's digitally generated in the real world, right? And this is where we start talking about augmented reality glasses, VR headsets. I've been checking out a lot of the newest VR headsets that are coming out, right? There's going to be an absolute explosion of new technologies, new glasses, new headsets. And some of these headsets have the technology and the resolution where your brain cannot distinguish from sitting here, just in the real world and the digital world. It's getting to that level. And, within 5 years, I'm not going to be surprised if you go out or, you're at home for the holidays, and everybody in your family has a headset on in their own little world, just like they're on their phones now, right? So the way that we connect is dramatically going to change, and for the better, and in some ways potentially for the worse.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like a book I read a long time ago. You might remember it, Snow Crash, Neil Stephan.
Yeah.
And we're here, right? We're at the verge of that becoming a reality. Well said. That people spend, well, I don't know, dual lives. Anyway, so my background and being the IT nerd in this call, it's really important as well to stop relying on those centralized services that are being presented to us by big tech. And big tech has ownership today, and I think we've seen the downside of it is that they now control and know more and actually are not controllable anymore by governments. I mean, take big tech companies in the US. I mean, they've
In a lot of ways, they're more powerful than governments are.
Yeah,
and they know more about you.
But that's a really weird situation, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really weird situation. And the examples that I can think of, and again, I'm biased as well. You're biased, I'm biased. I'm very, very biased. But the thing I can think of is that at a certain point in time, and I don't remember why, but Google stopped search in Australia because there was something about publishing, right, where they needed to pay for having content on their search that belonged to authors in Australia. And they said, no longer you have access to search. I mean, how weird is that? And how does that not put forward the greatest gift that was given to mankind in terms of having the ability to speak over long distance and learn over long distance? And I honestly think that what you've done with DigiByte and are still doing in terms of making that financial transactions decentralized, not go through third parties, take people or give people the ability to control and own it in their own hands. I've got a background in terms of now being part of a group of people that want to decentralize that whole data center thing and give it back to people on the desk and make people create like a solar panel, compute and data storage. It can be done, really. You have to go through and jump through a lot of hoops and go through a lot of simplification and go through a lot of responsibility that needs to be carried by the individual, but it can be done. And I think the two together are a beautiful starting point for a new world in this metaverse, where in that metaverse, you can now own your own data, as you said earlier, and you can now own your own value and have your own value and value creation even, and just be amongst peers. And I think that is what we need to promote and push forward into this world by all of us and by many of us, and start to showcase that is the world that we need to want to live into.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's very important for people to understand blockchain technology, finance, sending money. That was just the first use case. That was just the first use case to get people's attention, right? But, like right now, so obviously I'm a tech nerd too. I'm always, playing with gadgets, and I'm always wondering, how can I decentralize this? Well, here I am sitting in a house where I have smart lights I can connect from the phone. I have a lock that I can connect. I have temperature controllers for the thermostat I can control too. I even have a garage door opener. But all of those systems go outside of my physical environment, connect to a faraway server I have no control over, and a hacker, a government, or any law enforcement agency with a subpoena can access that information anytime they want, and I have no idea that it's happening. Same thing with security cameras, right? Same thing with my operating system and my computer I'm sitting here talking to you on. So is that really the future we want to have, where every movement we make, every time I turn a light switch on and off, is remotely monitored by, Big Brother? That's not the world I want to live in. And especially I don't want to live in a world where if I enter VR, or let's say I'm driving down the road with some augmented reality glasses, and, some hacker comes in and projects a falling tree in the road where I have to go around, but at the same time removes the oncoming car. This is a very real possibility when you have an augmented reality, and so all of a sudden you get in a head-on collision. Oh, it's your fault, right? This brings up the issue of deep fakes, where people are generated their images committing a crime, even though they weren't there, but all they need is just a couple pictures they find on the internet. How do we protect ourselves against these kinds of things? in the metaverse, in this new world we're moving into, where our realities are augmented by these digital services. The only way to do that is for you to control your own identity and your own data and your own information. And blockchain technology is the means and the rails for that to happen. Truly decentralized, I should say, not centralized blockchain technology. And I think it's important people start distinguishing that just because somebody uses the word blockchain doesn't mean it's decentralized, especially when it comes to like central bank digital currencies and a lot of, I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to, go after specific projects, but let's just say there's really only a handful of truly decentralized blockchains out there that can be the platform to secure this coming digital renaissance and revolution in the metaverse.
Well, you say coming, I think it's happening. Huh? Let's be very simple and honest. And for a lot of these projects, because again, people don't know, and that's a pity. And we're not here in a show to name and shame or whatever it is, but a lot of what is happening in the blockchain world is still running in an AWS data center. Let's be very honest. And that is very hard to get out of because it's such a convenience factor, just like a convenience store around the corner. It's presenting you with capabilities that you need in order to participate in a particular blockchain project that is not helping that whole decentralization aspect of it. And they suffer from it as well, and they know it, and they can't get out of that quite easily. So thinking about that, let's also spend a few minutes on articulating, because with that whole aspect of not having that convenience factor and not having that centralized number to call, decentralization comes with responsibility, right? Because it's all on you in the end. And managing, I mean, that's the simple start of it, managing your private identity, again, whether it's with a key or whether it's with whatever means, a private key in the end is the entry point into your digital life. Then that is a very big shift in how most of us now work, because we call if something doesn't work. You talked about your cameras and your garage door and all of the convenience that you have today with that automation. If it doesn't work, you call somebody, or at least you try to, right? It's not always
or you message the chat bot, but you've got to get them to turn it on and back off, right?
And but that all goes, right? That's the thing with decentralization. I mean, it's upon you now to understand what you're involved in, what you do, and what you own, digital assets, real assets, and value. And I think that's also good to sort of get that out and say that. I mean, it comes with responsibility.
It's very, very much important. Yeah. And that's why, over time, there's new technologies that are emerging to help with this sort of situation, and then also, none of us are going to live forever. So how do we pass this on to our children or our family, right? Or, let's say you step out in the street and you get hit by a bus, then what happens? But, you just touched on something that I don't think I've ever really articulated in interviews, and it makes me excited. The vision that I've had for years is not just simply having my DigiByte wallet on my computer where I control my private keys and I can control that money and send transactions anytime I wanted to. What I've always envisioned is a device on my computer, or maybe a home hub that's just called, maybe the DigiByte hub, where that is used to secure and control access to my door, my garage door, my security cameras, my lights, my temperature sensors, and all of that information that's outgoing can be authorized. So for instance, let's say I wanted to sell the data, on my power usage from my lights, or let's say, we have smart washers and dryers now that connect to Wi-Fi, because the plan is eventually they want to have a code where the washing machine scans how many times you wear a certain shirt. So it just scans the tag in your shirt and it says, hey, this guy, he wore this shirt 3 times last week. He must really like that shirt. Let's put this ad in his display so he buys another one. That's where this is going. The tech's already there. They're wanting to do it. But that information's my data. I own how many times I wear that shirt. I may authorize that anonymously with a cryptographic hash protecting my identity. And then in exchange, I get part of that, data return. I get paid like a microtransaction, but that should be my right to do that. But unfortunately, that's not where the world's moving right now.
No. And I think that's, to go back to us too, that's where our two projects come together. Again, we want to create a place where you can create this solar panel that just creates capacity to store and capacity to process everywhere, in your home, in your school, in your city hall. It doesn't really matter where you do that, but it's like an exploded view of a data center that happens in your home and not in this data center that is owned by somebody else. You own that capacity generator. And then from where you come with all of that cryptographic knowledge and experience and multiple consensus mechanisms and whatever, right? Put that together and then start building that new world slowly but surely in steps where people, because again, we need to take people with us. It's a very different world that this is happening in. And like I said earlier, I mean, if and when you don't rely on other people to manage your data, you need to manage it yourself. And that's a huge responsibility that comes with wanting that and doing that. And I think we've got foundational technologies on those two ends that if and when they meet, if and when they come together, and if and when they start creating and innovating on top of those two platforms, we can really start building innovation in that direction where you start taking back and having and owning your own data. And if you want to monetize it by selling it to Facebook, by all means, now I said the name, but by all means do it, right? It's your choice. Yeah. Do it. It's not that we're against that, but it needs to be your decision. It doesn't
100%. Yeah. And security needs to be at the forefront. And that's really where blockchain comes in. You know, a lot of people, when they hear this term blockchain, they don't quite understand it. Well, one of the other ways I like to explain it is a blockchain is like a car. And in a car, you have all these subsystems. You have the tires, you have the engine, you have the air conditioning, you have the trunk, all these different systems. Well, in a blockchain, you have all these different cryptographic subsystems. And a lot of these cryptographic innovations were some of the most brilliant innovations in mathematics we've seen over the last 50 years. And a lot of times these were used to secure government secret information, nuclear launch codes, stuff like that. But the real innovation of a blockchain is the way that these cryptographic subsystems work together to secure information in innovative ways. And a lot of that potential is largely untapped, you know, because like I said, the first use case was simply sending a transaction back and forth. But that technology can be used to sign a request to authorize your front door, or like I said, the data and information of how many times you wore a shirt in your washing machine if you want to send it to the clothing manufacturer. It really gets innovative when, and this is where the metaverse comes in, is when you start talking about machines talking to machines. And that is a huge part of the metaverse, right? Because, you know, we as the human beings are just one part of this network in this metaverse. So as these machines are talking to each other, you know, you as the human participant need to be able to trust and verify those machines as they interact, you know, whether it's your car going down the road, whether it's, you know, cameras, sensors, or even the device you wear, right? You need to make sure that nobody else is able to control that and do things that, are not in your best interest.
And that's very, very, very exciting. I can see a bright future for both of our projects, both of our initiatives. I love talking to you and seeing this future vision of it. How much time do you think it will take for smart layers to exist on the DigiByte blockchain technology? How much time will it take to develop that? And are people actually involved in doing so?
So, you know, we've had prototypes and stuff, you know, going back a while now. The key is to make the tools and the platform easily accessible, you know, so people can start, you know, doing this, working on top of it. And I think that's going to happen much more rapidly, you know, than it's going to take time. I mean, the next 5 years are just going to be I think the most turbulent and radical changes we've ever had in world history. Just, I mean, if you take in the geopolitics, I mean, the world is splitting in two right now. But the technology of decentralization, you know, if you study the past, like say 500 years of human history, and you look at the last 30 and the impact that the internet has had on actually bringing peace on earth and reducing conflict and sharing information, sharing understanding of from one culture to another, I actually see blockchain technology and decentralized, metaverse actually being this glue that can help continue that and help, bring people from different parts of the planet together in a way where, they're not dropping bombs on each other and, they're collaborating. I mean, that's the amazing thing about DigiByte is just how many people from different countries I've collaborated with over the last 8 or 9 years. I mean, it's truly been amazing. And I think that's the way of the future. But it's important that, like you said, we take the ownership on ourselves to, properly secure the things that are important to make this happen, but to also, understand it, because the dark side is with the advancements in artificial intelligence, robotics, and the major wave of centralization that we've seen in big tech, there could come a point where humanity becomes so controlled and micromanaged, we may not get out of it. And that's, to me, my biggest fear.
And I share that. And I think we're well on our way to be there, and we need to go back. We need to just turn around and go back and do something else, because this has gone the wrong way. And again, like I said in the beginning, when I started doing this, it was really person to person. Like we're speaking right now, I know you, you know me, right? And I can share many things with you that I wouldn't share with anybody that I don't know this well, or I don't know and have had this interaction with. And I think that's what the internet has become, a place where you can be anonymous, where you can say whatever you want, where you can scream, which is fine. I mean, freedom of speech is a big thing, but it doesn't mean you have to go and be very different than what you do in real life. And I would like to get that digital world and the digital life to go back to what we do in every day with our neighbors, with our communities, with the people that we are part of and we love. And that's what it needs to go back to. And I think this whole centralization aspect didn't help it.
Well, and so to answer your original question, how long is it going to take to start building out this infrastructure? The point I was getting at is what you just touched on, is the need for this is becoming ever more apparent to people. And as that need grows, this is going to happen quicker because there's going to be more people interested in building this alternative future and this alternative technology and embracing it. And I see that happening even more and more and more. And there's been times where I've obviously, I've been involved here for almost 10 years now. And there's been times I've definitely got burned out, but I see a yearning and a wanting now, sitting here, what is it, March 10th, 2022, more so than I ever have before. I've been hearing people that were, raging on blockchain tech for years, all of a sudden being like, wow, actually, maybe this is really important. We need to look to this. So that need is here and people are embracing it. And that to me makes me very optimistic and excited to continue doing this and building out this foundational layer that a whole new world can be built on.
And I think that's a fantastic statement. And as this is the first one that we do together on this, maybe we should ask for some input, because I would like to do more like this with you, to be honest. And I hope you would agree with that. Again, it's no question, so let it be this answer. And maybe let people comment towards this video what they would like to see going forward. I think we have a plan to do this on a monthly basis, maybe a little bit quicker when we can find the time, because I know you're really, really busy and you're really involved with a lot of things. So let's see how that pans out. But we'd love to get some input in terms of what you thought about this episode and how you would like to see certain topics being tabled going forward. If you agree with that, I mean, it's It's not necessarily at this point in time my show. I mean, Cooper Daniel was definitely a host. I think I'm less of a host, but more of a talking partner towards you. So I would like to invite the people that have seen this and that like this to sort of put forward comments, questions, and topics that we might like to tap on. And then I'd love to get online with you again in a few weeks and do another episode if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And I think it's important to relay to people that we're talking about the first steps here, and what can be done. But this, all of this technology, it's going to emerge very rapidly. And I mean, if you remember your life before you had a smartphone, and then within just a few months and a year, I mean, just how radically quickly it changed it. That's the impact this I guess you'd say metaverse, but to me it has various definitions, but this integration of all the different technological and real world things as they merge together in the way that we experience and interact with technology, it's about to radically change.
Exactly, and I'm speaking to a few other people as well, which I'm really keen to also hear your vision and opinion on, and these are, let's say, people that are not currently involved in the whole digital revolution that's happening. They're farmers in Africa, and they have got an acre of land, and that's it. And imagine what it means for them to be able to be independent, to have their own currency, and to be able to monetize the data that they create about growing their crops. I mean, that is how fundamental this whole innovation and technology will be. And I think that's where at least my excitement definitely sits, to bring them on board as well and make them part of this metaverse, make them part of this new world, experiencing digital growth and digital prosperity.
Yeah, absolutely. Food, we could have a whole episode just on food stuff alone. I'm actually working on some projects, but I think it's important for people to understand that the main premise is to take charge of your own data, your own digital identity, your own information, just like you take charge of your own crypto wallet. That's the future. And out of that future, we have a bottom-up system where we, the people, are in control. And, I think that leads to a much more, I guess, blossoming of humanity to do a lot of great things.
With that said, beautifully said. Thank you so much, Jared. I really enjoyed this episode, creating this episode with you. And I'm looking forward to much more. And again, like I said, like we said, send some suggestions in terms of where you want us to go. We'll prepare them and we'll take them one by one and try to give you all the insights that we both have and both of our projects have at this point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.